Let's talk about catastrophic data loss. This is not something you ever want to hear. This is not something you ever want to have to deal with, but unfortunately, it does happen from time to time. It's exceedingly rare, and if it never happens to you for the duration of using the software, fantastic. That's honestly what we would expect, that it would not happen to you. But you have to be prepared for the event that it does. And what I personally do is I back up my data every single day. The reason I do this is because if I go to add a brand new book, or if I'm adding a new link, or what have you, I want to make sure that my data is saved all the time. Now, if you don't want to back up your data every day, then I would at least say anytime that you add a new link or anytime that you add a new book, especially if you add a new book, make sure that you go ahead and back up the data right after you've done the add. That way, at least you have a snapshot of the latest situation. You may not have all the statistics if you need to restore, but at least you have a snapshot of all of the links and all of their associated IDs, and that's where the key component comes in here. And I'm going to show you really quick what I'm talking about. So I come over here to the book links, and you're going to see that I have a bunch of, this is just sample data that we've put in here so we can do some testing. But let's just go ahead and click one of the books. And what I'm talking about here is we have a whole bunch of links for each one of these books. So if I just added this book, I just got a whole bunch of IDs, and then I went through and I tweeted about it, and I put it in the back of my book and all that kind of stuff. Well, if I don't back up this data, and then for whatever reason I lose this data, then I'm not going to have all of this information. And so all those links in the back of my books aren't going to work. And if I try to I just add the book again and I'll get it. The problem is that these IDs are all going to be different, because when it adds a brand new ID, it's going to add it after whatever the latest one is. Now you can see here, I've added these books late in the day because I started with this one, let's say, and it started at 123, 125, 122, and so on. These may not be in sequential order necessarily. But then all of a sudden it jumps to 371. Well, the reason for that is because uh, I may have added other books before I added this particular link in. And so other books, went all the way up to 370. And so when I added this book, it said, well, I have to grab whatever the latest link ID is, add one to it, and that's what's going to be the next link in order. And then as you can see, it jumped to 405. So when you're looking at these, you might see some that, they look like they're in sequential order, and then all of a sudden, boom, they jump, and they go to these big numbers, 423, for example. I mean, you can see that they're all over the map. And that's because, again, they're added in order of availability of ID is what's going on here. Let's just say then that we have a situation where we have lost this data. And obviously the best thing to do is that you've made a backup, so all you have to do is restore, you get everything back, everything is working again, it's all wonderful. But let's just say that your backup file, for whatever reason, maybe your hard drive crashed, or maybe the email that you had sent to yourself with the backup file got deleted, or your Dropbox account got messed up, whatever. It could be any particular reason that you have lost this data. Your hosting service might have crashed. There could be so many reasons. And again, these things are all so rare, so hopefully this never ever happens to you. But let's just say that it does, and we're faced with the worst case scenario. You need to have a way where you can do one of two things. You can either add all of your books, so you go back and you add all these books back in here, and you try to remember all those links and everything else, which some of the links, if there's book-specific links, you are still going to have to do. For example, in this one, we have, like, I put in some test, ASDF links and stuff, but these are things that you could put in for yourself, and that maybe they have real names and so on associated to them, but these could be test links that you have put in for yourself, or specific links for your book, maybe a book contest that you're running and so on, that you would still have to remember. Also, if you had any core links that you added, specific core links, again, you would have to put those in. But let's just say that you know what all of those are, or you never added anything additional to it, and you still need a way to get these links back into your books. Well, the first thing that we're going to have that you could do, obviously, again, I'm going to just say it, is you could just restore your data. As long as you have it from the last link you created, the last book you created, and so on, all you have to do is go here, upload the zip file, and restore it, and you should be back in business. But again, let's say that you don't have that option. And so somehow, in the back of each one of your books, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, Well, I know that this link in the back of my book says the ID is 125, which happens to be this guy right here, but let's just say happens to be 125, not 123. I wish I could just change this to say 125, and then I'll be all set with this link. Well, in the default view, you cannot do that. And the reason why is because that's actually can be kind of a scary scenario. If you accidentally change that to, the incorrect value, all of your links are going to break. So we don't want to provide that as just a default view. So how do you get there? Well, you come over to this Home tab, and we're going to go to Configure Your Plugin Settings. Then we're going to say Show Advanced Settings. And you'll notice it's got this big red text in here because, frankly, you shouldn't be doing this unless you really, really have to do this. So we're going to change this to say yes, and we're saying enable ID editing. And so what we're doing is we're allowing you to edit the IDs. So we're going to say update the user settings. You're going to get the obligatory pop-up box, which will always show up for that if you're doing Beautify of links. And then we're going to come back here, and now we still see everything the same. And what we wanted was this guy to be 125. And we have to remember this guy is already 125. So what's going to happen? Well, we'll show you. So we'll click View. Now when you edit the book link, you can see you can actually edit this link. So I'm going to go ahead and edit it. I'm going to change to 125. Now, boom, as soon as I hit that, anybody in the back of your book who clicks that link is automatically going to be going, back to the URL that you wanted them to go to. Everything is solved there. That's wonderful. But what happened to that other link? Well, this one got changed to 125. This one got changed to 123. So what happened is that it actually swapped these two values. So at this point, you could be saying, oh, okay, well, 123 is not what this one is. This one's right. This one's great. So everything's good there. But the paperback was supposed to be 123, and this one was supposed to be 124. Good. And all you have to do is go to View, edit this one, set this one to 124, hit Enter. And then when we go back, now this one is 124 and the paperback is 123. So we've actually allowed ourselves to salvage the situation here. Now, yes, there are a lot of links that you'll have to deal with that on, but if you're looking at the back of each one of your books and you're saying, okay, this was this ID, this was this ID, you can just literally change those IDs in turn here, and they should all start working again automatically for you. Again, the goal here is that you never ever have to deal with this. The best way to avoid that is to back up your data after every link you add, after every book you add. I personally just do it every day. It makes life so much easier. So I just do it, every night. I just come in here, I do a backup, and it's great because it will automatically, put today's date as part of the backup zip file. So you're good there. You'll know every single day, you'll see the latest one. And, you don't have to keep a track record of all of your backups either. You can say, okay, I have a week's worth of backups, so I can delete all of last week's or whatever you want to do. However, if, the stars align and you end up losing your backup data, your hosting service crashes, it would take a lot for this to actually, come to fruition, just to ease your fears a little bit. But then you can always come in here and set this to yes, and you can manually go through, which honestly is a time-consuming process, but you could manually go through and fix all of the links by hand. However, again, it is highly recommended that you leave this set to no, and that way, when you come into the books area and you do a view on a book, when you edit it, you won't see that item, and so you can't inadvertently make a mistake. Like you're going, well, I wonder what this 125 is for, and then you change it to 109 or something. Next thing you know, you've got two links that aren't working. So again, it's an advanced feature. It's a what's called catastrophe recovery, and if you ever have to use it, that's unfortunate, and we hope that you never do have to use it. I've been using this plugin now for the last 6 months. I have never had a problem, never had to use it. I do back up my data every day, and I've recently done I changed hosting services, and all I did was back up my data. I went and installed the Author Helper plugin on my new hosting service on the new thing. I restored my data. Everything was back to normal. Didn't have to do anything. No hiccups at all. It was great. So just try to keep this going. And remember, if you ever do fall into that well and this happens to you, this is where you can go to change the advanced settings as needed. And that's it.